Even with his court appearance still pending, there's no doubt in our minds, Steven Willis and myself, that Trinidad Chambliss will be back in an Ole Miss uniform in 2026, making Ole Miss a top 5 contender for the college football playoff.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This crossover of Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal. I am Brian Smith along with Steven Willis. Thank you for making each of our shows a part of your day each and every day right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We are brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Right now, Mazda has everything lined up for you because we put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. We're talking about Mr. Trinidad Chambliss. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. We're going to be talking about what is it going to take for Ole Miss to now handle the spotlight after they made such a deep run in the 2025 college football playoff. It's going to be an interesting change because they are no longer the hunter. They are the hunted. We're also going to talk about the defense, key additions from Auburn and all kinds of different places. The portal has been kind once again to the Rebels. Their defense should take a step forward. They have an intriguing schedule. We're going to talk about a few of the road games and, of course, the big game with Lane Kiffin and the LSU Tigers early in the season, once again in Oxford. But to start off with, we want to talk about Trinidad Chambliss and a little bit about Luke Ferrelli, but more the former than the latter. Steven, I'm biased, so I'm just going to make the following proclamation. I'm not an Ole Miss fan, but I do hope that Trinidad gets his waiver just because I like to watch him play. With that being stated, no offense to Division II Ferris State, but in my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, it's not the same exposure opportunity to play at that level, obviously, as it is in any level of Division I, especially Southeastern Conference at a school like Ole Miss. And he had, the weird medical situation. I'll be surprised if he is not granted the waiver. What is your take on Trinidad Chambliss?
Yeah, I think everybody's operating in Oxford, Mississippi like Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the starting quarterback on the first snap of 2026 at this point. Where we're sitting right now is the NCAA currently has everything, and at any point, even by the time you watch this, it could have dropped in between the time of us recording and the time you watching. They're going to announce their decision, whether they're going to uphold the denial or they're going to grant him eligibility through the NCAA. And the reality of that is that would be a nice clean bow that gets put on things if Trinidad gets that. But if you look at the ultimate thing for Trinidad to get eligibility, it's the state courts. They've already filed the lawsuit that could happen. It's almost a home run that he's going to get it, in my opinion, once you look at all the evidence that is out there. And when Trinidad Chambliss becomes the starting quarterback, Ole Miss has arguably the best quarterback in the country, the best running back in the country, and the best kicker in the country. And anytime you have those three positions that can affect winning, it's probably a pretty good sign for your football team.
I would agree across the board. I'm curious, how much will the state, the NCAA, the SEC, I don't even know exactly who they're fighting here, because not everybody at the NCAA is going to feel the same. They just don't have to put out one statement. But who are the people there that don't think he should and those that do? I'd love to know that. I'd love to be the fly on the wall.
It's the NCAA. And because he came from D2 to D1, there's different standards of documentation of injuries. That is the basis for this. At Ferris State, he went to the doctor, but he didn't have to keep a certain type of notes and everything. So it had to be noted after the fact that this happened. In D1, that's not good enough. In D2, that is good enough. So that's the communication breakdown issue that is basically the loophole that the NCAA is using for the denial reason. And like I said, once it goes to court and everything happens, they're going to say, well, you just granted this guy that played in the G League eligibility in basketball, and a linebacker from Miami is getting his 8th year of eligibility, and all of this is happening, and Trinidad's played 3 years. Now, granted, it's a 6th year of eligibilities, but he's played 3 years, and it's going to be a hard case to win. And my expectation, it would be the NCAA looking out for their best interest, picking one of these eligibility cases that's a slam dunk win, because they need one of those at these points. Because every time one of these goes through, precedent is established. And once it does, there's nothing you can really do. The NCAA needs a win. I don't think it's this case.
The only thing I will say to add to that, I don't know what it stands at now, the Diego Pavia circumstance. Like, he's played about 100 years, it seems like. Obviously a great player, not in question. I haven't heard anything about his. I assume it got denied, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was another effort for an appeal there either. And these things can continue on. And by the way, the guy at Miami, I think it was year 9 or whatever, it was tight end. That was great. But like, for the love of God, Northwestern's got a kid that's going to, I believe, Ohio State, that's a tight end, that's a 7th year.
Yeah.
Year.
Eligibility is a myth, and it is the selective enforcement arm of what NCAA probation used to be. That is the one weapon the NCAA has, and they will selectively use it from time to time.
That's why lawsuits are very common, Stephen. That's why it's very common. All right. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the Luke Ferrelli thing, but obviously this is a weird deal. Dabo's obviously not a shy guy. But I saw one of your posts on X, I think it was X, that you were talking about nobody wanted to say anything when LSU was taking players from Ole Miss. And I kind of want to piggyback off this. Do I think what Pete Golding did was the best thing? Probably not. But if people are stealing guys off your roster, are you supposed to sit there and take it too? He was in a lose-lose. I don't in any way, shape, or form like guys trying to pull somebody off another guy's roster. But, I mean, his old boss, I guess they're friends, is taking guys from Ole Miss. So what is Pete supposed to do? Somebody give me the answer that both gives him a great chance to win and is ethical, because I don't see how those two things go together. And by the way, Ferrelli is a great player. I believe he was ACC Rookie of the Year or defensive
Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be good to be able to play middle linebacker as a freshman in general, but to be Rookie of the Year at that spot, I think linebacker is the least important position on the field anymore, because you can go around them in so many different ways now. For him to be that good, if you're going to go out of your way to get a guy, I guess that would be a really good one. He's got technically 3 years left, although I doubt he ever sees his senior year. I imagine he'll be 2 more years and head to this thing they call the National Football League. But adding him to the middle of the defense, you got Perkins back. I'm just trying to think, like, they lost a certain player who won't be mentioned to LSU at linebacker. So it's kind of like you might have even upgraded. It's debatable, but you might have upgraded, probably did. When was the last time you thought Ole Miss was in this position at linebacker where it was just no doubt, like, you got 2 NFL guys sitting there? Like, Perkins is a dude, we've talked about him for a couple of years since I've known you. It's in the last 10 years, have they had a 1-2 punch this good, in your opinion, at linebacker?
I don't think so. In 2024, they were close when they had Chris Paul.
Yeah, he was good.
He was a really good player. Daugherty is a really good player. Don't hear anything that anybody's saying that he's a bad player, because he was a good player. He played 85 snaps a game at Ole Miss. He obviously knew what he was doing, but his ceiling is not as high as the linebackers that Ole Miss signed. When you add like Keaton Thomas and Taj Butler, and then you bring in Luke Ferrelli, the ceiling for the linebacker room is much higher than it was even in 2024. I think that Keaton Thomas is going to be that Chris Paul type of linebacker, just kind of a tackling machine. Ferrelli is going to be the standard middle linebacker type. And the reality of this is, if you just take LSU out of the equation, everybody talks about all of this is happening to Ole Miss and nobody's talking about it. Look at Chris Jones. Chris Jones signed with Florida State and all of that. And what happened was Chris Jones signed with Ole Miss, committed to Ole Miss, and was getting ready to be enrolled. Now, granted, the timeline of when Ole Miss starts classes is different, but it was there. He was done. He was signed. Florida State grabbed Chris Jones, offered him 3 times the salary, and now he is a linebacker at Florida State University. No press conferences, no whatever's going on. It just happened. That's the environment that we're living in. And I think the reality of this whole situation is, it's not an ethical or anything like that question. It's just, if you go from 2014 into 2026 and didn't participate at all until now, I imagine this whole scenario is jarring. But if you've been handling the portal over what's going on, you understand the rules of the game and what you have to do, because the reality is, if Pete Golding doesn't go all out to get players, he's going to lose his job. He's going to lose $7 or $8 million a year because he decided to do things the way it was in 2014. And not a single coach in the country is going to be willing to do that. Now, is Dabo upset about what happened and the way the transfer worked in 2014? Yeah, he probably is, and probably honestly deserves to be. But that 2014 Dabo doesn't mix with the 2026 transfer portal and what's going on. And every coach has to do this. Now, I will say this. Ole Miss has taken a transfer portal player from Clemson in 3 of the last 4 years of the last 4 years.
That probably adds a little spice to the life of this situation, I'm sure.
Yeah, TJ Daugherty came from Clemson. There's a cornerback that just transferred to Ole Miss from Clemson, like Tavoy Fegan. Yeah. So there's a little bit of history there, and I do not think that this is going down exactly the way it's being put in. They're trying to stop Ole Miss from coming in and taking their players.
Fair enough, but I think the biggest thing from this, and again, I'm not advocating for stealing players, but it is a new era. Dabo has been the least likely person in almost every single possible way to adapt or even think about adapting to portal, and to especially that 3-letter acronym, which he quite honestly despises, and that's name, image, and likeness. So it's, you're not going to win it again unless you adapt, and he's a great coach. So I hope that, I'm not saying he's going to go the exact route everybody else is, but he's got to adapt some, and it is what it is.
Yeah, if he doesn't, he's not going to have a job in 2 years.
Yeah, they'll be 7-5, 8-4. They won't put up with that at Clemson. When we come back, I want to talk about the Ole Miss schedule, the defense for the Rebels. We got a lot to discuss right here on the Portal Podcast crossover with Locked on Ole Miss. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And for Ole Miss, since we're doing an Ole Miss crossover, this is very, very simple. In my lifetime, I have followed college football for roughly 40 years. I don't know if I've ever seen a player really change the score or how people view college football quite the way that Trinidad Chambliss did. Tremendous story, a kid that just wanted to play Division I football, ends up at Ferris State, gets his chance, and he just transcended what it means to never give up, to never think that he wasn't going to be the guy, takes his opportunity, even as a backup at Ole Miss, and moves it forward because he never quit. And that's the way you should look at Mazda as well. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. But there's more to a Mazda because there is also more to you. Thank you once again for making the Ole Miss podcast, Locked on Ole Miss, and Locked on the Portal a part of your day. And if you want to take it to the next level, I know Steven really goes all out. I'll let him explain his $15 a month deal, but it's pretty simple with the basics. If you want to take your audio on the go with no ads, it's $5 a month or $50 a month with the Everydayer Club. And you also get Discord and other things. Steven, if you want to explain your intelligent idea and all the stuff that you do with all the videos and stuff, fire away, brother.
Yeah, we do a thing in the morning or the night. It's called Show Prep, where I get behind the scenes for every episode that I do. I have Coach Corey Burton, who also does Locked on Vandy. He does video breakdowns like the film guy on YouTube. Everybody talks about that. We have one of Luke Ferrelli. Any big name that comes through, he usually breaks it down a couple of minutes if he can. And we have Dalen Flowers, who's in Oxford, kind of covering the news on the ground. And we have Mike Huseman, who is big in the transfer portal and in coaching searches. All of those are available in the $15 a month all access plan if you're interested in that.
I appreciate it, Stephen. Thank you very much. All right, now let's talk a little bit about something that you and I are fascinated by every year. Every time I do crossovers with you, this comes into play in some way, shape, or form, and that's the schedule for Ole Miss. Like, I call it the Lane Kiffin game because LSU, it's pretty early in the year. It's like game 3 or 4, isn't it? It's
It's
pretty
like
early.
game 3, I think. Yeah.
They come back to Oxford. I don't know how much we can really preview a game in January, but I may even go up for that game, and I've never seen one at Hemingway, but I guess if I'm going to, Stephen, that would be a great way to start.
Yeah, that one could be an absolute zoo, and it probably will be a zoo, if we're going to be honest.
I work with Coastline Star 7-on-7 organization. I may have to find a way to take some kids up there so I can be on the sideline for that. That is a great opportunity. But to that end, I'm just curious, do you think there will have to be, I would imagine the answer to this is yes. Are they going to have to do special, for lack of a better term, security for Kiffin? And I hope he doesn't bring any of his family. And I mean that truthfully. Like, what do you think is going to happen with that? Because I don't think that's going to go very well. I don't know if it'll be as bad as Tennessee where they throw batteries at him. That's a little ridiculous. But what do you think is going to be the deal with that?
He better hope it's not as bad as Tennessee, because Ole Miss, there's tighter confines than it can get to you.
Is it really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tennessee's a neat stadium, but it's massive.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know if it'll be like that Tennessee game in 2021. It's going to be a cauldron. It's going to be rough. And I'm just going to be completely honest. Everybody that's going to be in that stadium that's not wearing purple and gold wants to beat Lane Kiffin with the fire of 1,000 suns. Even the players that returned, all of this with the transfer portal. I think Ole Miss's 2 top transfer portal additions is Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss. Both of those were very iffy at the end of November and the beginning of December. If you remember, Kewan Lacey and Trinidad, they were getting brought on the Pat McAfee show during all of this later on. There was obviously a relationship. Lane Kiffin was doing like the BTA, snapping the belt and taking his belt off. It was obvious there was recruiting going on at that point. So I think the fact that Ole Miss only lost 4 players and only lost 3 on the field coaches to LSU, there's going to be a want to win that game a lot. And LSU has a $50 million roster. It's like the Dodgers, essentially $50 million. If you do not make the national championship game with a $50 million roster, you are a terrible coach at that point. And it's one of those things to where all of these advantages for you are right there. If you find a way to go 9-3 with that roster, it's going to be a problem. And remember, Brian, in 2024, Ole Miss had that roster and they went 9-3.
Yeah, they found a way to lose the close games they shouldn't have. There's no doubt. So that was Kiffin. All right, road games. Obviously, the LSU game is in Oxford. Florida, I have no idea. I think Summerall's a good coach. I'm sure you do too, but it's year one. They got Aaron Philo as their quarterback, probably guy that broke all kinds of high school records in Georgia, small school football. He ain't played, but the swamp is difficult. Vandy, is Jared Curtis the quarterback? Is it somebody? I don't know. Texas and Oklahoma are the 2 road games you go, okay. Those are not friendly. There's no shortcut there. Those are not friendly. They got returning quarterbacks, incredibly crazy fan bases, not easy state, the whole 9 yards. Which one are you more weary of, Texas or OU?
Oh, Texas. And it's not because of the talent on the field, because I actually think that OU might be better as a team. But anytime you have a Manning versus Ole Miss, it takes it up a level.
100%.
And in that game, you will have a Manning play against Ole Miss. So that is the game I'm going to be wary of. Now, if John Mateer is healthy for Oklahoma's going to have a better team in 2025. That's going to be difficult road games for Ole Miss to navigate at Texas and at OU. Seriously.
Oh, I absolutely agree. The defense should improve quite a bit for Ole Miss. But to that end, do you think any one level is going to be totally different or like just go up exponentially? And if so, which spot would it be?
I think it's going to be the defensive backs, if we're going to be honest about it. Last year, Pete Golding was not able to play man defense. And this defense, when you can't play man or against any team, when you play man, it's going to open you up to other teams running the ball on you because you have to protect that secondary. This year, that's not going to be a problem. You can tell that Ole Miss was kind of fed up for a lack of a better word, for a lack of doing that. They went out and got Jay Crawford, who is basically a Trey Amos clone from Auburn, that you can just lock down the side of the field with him on. You still have your number one corner in Antonio Kite. He's probably going to be on the other side. And we talked off air about Sharif Denson, who came from Florida. But you look back at the safety positions. Edwin Joseph from Florida State, kind of a ball hawk, somebody that can play the position aggressively, and Janelle Aguero. I think that Ole Miss, I don't overlook the fact that LaDarian Clardy could end up being the free safety on this defense, by the way. He in the playoffs, he actually played quite a bit. But when you put all that together, there's a very much more athletic group that can man covered, can take half the field away, and kind of let those linebackers and defensive line do what they did in 2024. And if Ole Miss can do that, they're going to be a problem to deal with.
Finally, being in the national spotlight, how do you think that'll impact Ole Miss as they are going to now be the hunted instead of the hunter? Do you think that changes anything? And if so, how?
I think they've been the hunter for a little while, the hunted a little bit so far going into this past season, because in 2024 is kind of where it flipped over to where they were the hunted, I should say. And in 2025, last year, they were still the hunted. They just were able to win the games because they were a winning football team. And I think that Trinidad, I think that Kewan Lacey, I think that the major players on this Ole Miss team have been through the wars essentially with that 2024 and 2025 team, and they'll be able to handle it. Now, this is the first year of the 9-game SEC schedule, so it's automatically an extra conference game thrown in. You have your lifelong rivals against the Oklahoma Sooners. You have to go back there. You have LSU at home and their $50 million roster. And then the Egg Bowl is just the Egg Bowl. You never know what's going to happen there. So I think this team could very well be one of the most talented that Ole Miss has ever had. Now, 2024, that was the most talented that they've ever had. It's a question of how high this team can get in comparison to that one. I think they're going to be more talented than 2025. That doesn't necessarily, though, talking about the schedule and all that, mean playoffs and all of that stuff because of what can happen. But I do think that the ceiling for this football team is going to be very high, like a number one by their name, high. But their floor could be a little bit lower than even the 2025 was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes you got to see how the pieces come together, my friend. All right, there's no doubt there's a lot to figure out. That's why college football is so much fun, though. That's why we enjoy it that much. When we come back, we've talked about the spotlight and all that. I want to ask Stephen a few questions about the SEC, which teams, because it's always complex in the Southeastern Conference. That's not a newsflash. Which ones, besides the ones that are on the Ole Miss schedule, does he think have a chance to rise? Which ones are going to fall? That is next here on this crossover. Today's show is going to be brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. If you haven't got your taxes done yet, you have a great opportunity because this is tax season and it doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day each and every day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert from start to finish without the stress or the guesswork of filing your own taxes or handing those pieces of paper to somebody you really don't know much about. That's why you should trust TurboTax. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out all the forms yourself, maybe you got it right, maybe you didn't. Take your time, find the right person. Well, today, I'm telling you, it's TurboTax because you can meet with their local TurboTax expert and get it done. W-2s, 1099s, whatever it is, they can take care of it. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local expert for just $150. All in, if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you this past season, just file by the 28th of February. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your TurboTax appointment today. All right, Stephen. Ole Miss, I think conservatively will be top 3 by just about every poll in the SEC. Georgia, LSU, Texas, maybe top five. It's those four, I think. And then Oklahoma, like the SEC is going to be a little better this year. Just about everybody either A, has a returning quarterback out of that group, or B, like Levitt's going to LSU, obviously very talented. Which team do you think is going to be the most dynamic? Is it LSU? Is it Ole Miss with Trinidad? Is it Archer, Texas? Who do you think is going to be the most dynamic?
I think it comes down to one or two teams when it comes to dynamic. If Trinidad comes back, Ole Miss is going to be way up that list. Also, I think Texas is going to be there. By the end of the year, Arch Manning was good. I mean, because of the jokes that everybody made in September, they didn't want to acknowledge November. He was a very good player at the end, and now they have Cam Coleman and Wingo and all those guys and the running backs that they got. They basically – a kid that was committed to Alabama and all of that flipped over at the
Hollywood
end.
Smothers.
Yeah. So they have a chance to be pretty dynamic offensively. And it's another reason that Texas Ole Miss game just scares the heck out of me because of what it could, that could be the heavyweight fight of the SEC this year, as far as defense and offense and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think those are probably the two most explosive teams offensively.
Yeah, I think LSU got to see how they piece it. They got 40 guys in the portal. That's a lot. We'll see how that is, but they got the pieces to do it. Oklahoma, you brought it up earlier. Mateer, not only did his hand get messed up, his knee was messed up in the Auburn game last year. They just never reported it. And that's one of the reasons he didn't run as much. You notice that, Steven? His running went down about 60%. Ironic how that works when you're banged up below the waist. So we'll see if he gets better. He has to make some better post-snap reads. I don't really know what to say about Georgia. They are a weird team to try to figure out offensively. I mean, I think he's a good quarterback.
Hey, Kirby Smart now has a losing record against another SEC team.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
How ironic.
Yeah.
I still trust Kirby in general, but I know if he had it his way, the forward pass would not be allowed. And that's just kind of how he is. I don't know where to rank Georgia. They're the hardest one for me because they just don't use all their weapons the same way. They have plenty. They've even recruited receiver well. So they're a very difficult team for me to put a bow around it and say, well, they're definitely top 3 or top 8. I don't know if they're top 12 or number 1. It just depends on that offense. Defensively, I have faith in the Dogs. They'll figure it out. I have total faith there. But they got so many 5-star kids on that defense, it's grotesque. So they should. I think my dead grandmother could coach Georgia's defense. Last thing, and this, we haven't brought up a team that usually it starts with in the SEC. Alabama. I have no freaking clue because Ty Simpson's gone. And I'm just going to straight up throw the coaching staff at Bama under the bus here. They did not work to run the ball last year in the offseason, and it killed them in the regular season. They were trying to kind of fix that. They got some good offensive linemen in the portal, and they, at one point, as you already noted, got Hollywood Smothers from NC State before he flipped to Texas. They still have plenty of good running backs, and arguably the best running back in high school is going to Bama this year. But it's about the guys up front. Are they going to dedicate the time and the hitting in practice this offseason to run the ball the way Ole Miss did and some of these other teams that made it to the playoff and actually did something? I need to see it, but it's not like Alabama is void of talent. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there just for down the road. If they finish, let's say, 5th in the SEC next year and go 9-3, it's going to be a cauldron of its own in Tuscaloosa, 8-4, anything like that. And their schedule's hard. They play a really difficult schedule, and Auburn's going to be better, etc. Who knows? But the fact that you and I, neither one of us brought up Alabama as a top team in the SEC, not that they're bad. I think they're somewhere between 7 and 12 talent-wise in the country. But the schedule is not easy, and I think the league is harder overall. So even if they made it to the SEC title game, they probably won't be the favorite. Alabama fans have a very linear view of the world. It's Alabama and nobody else. So that's going to be very interesting. Do you think there's a chance if he goes 8-4, he gets canned? Like, what do you think is going to happen with DeBoer?
I don't know if he gets canned because he made the playoffs, and even though so he probably gets a little bit of grace because of that. But his seat's going to get hot. It's going to get hot in a hurry. Before we get out of here, watch out for South Carolina this year. I think that Lenore Sellers was built in a lab to run a Kendall Briles offense, and there's going to be it's going to look different offensively, and they're going to quarterback power you to death, and he's built to do that.
That guy's a truck. He's 240 pounds, and he can throw it a mile, but he can also just flat run over you right between your jerseys 1 and 2. He can put it on you with his cleats. So, Steven, I appreciate it. As always, this has been a crossover Locked On the Portal with Locked On Ole Miss. Steven, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Go to Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me on all the socials as well. Join our All Access program, our membership program as well. All of that's available for you. We like to have a good time talking Ole Miss football and only caring about Ole Miss football. So that's something that we have kind of going for us.
I appreciate it. You can find the Portal Podcast all the same places you find Locked On Ole Miss: Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and of course on YouTube. This has been a crossover Locked On Ole Miss with Locked On the Portal.